We're at Mobile World Congress 2013. I'm talking to Stephen Sale, Principal Analyst with Analysys Mason. Stephen, how real is the threat posed by OTT players to carrier revenues?
It's a very real threat. Voice and messaging services account for approximately 70% of mobile services revenue. So this is the cash cow of the operators that we're talking about. We've started to see impact in terms of usage in voice and messaging. In some markets, minutes of use and average messages per month are in decline. We're starting to see some revenue impact in messaging. It's been there in voice for quite some time. The impact in revenue lags the impact in usage because of the operator's ability to bundle. The revenue impact is quite difficult to isolate the different factors because we're seeing, this is happening at the same time as an economic downturn. It's a very mature market, there aren't very many growth opportunities. But there is certainly some substitution to alternative services. And to get an idea of how big this is, we've done some survey work recently which tells us that on average 10% of smartphone users are using VoIP on a regular basis, and 40% of smartphone users are using IM on a regular basis. So that's an appreciable amount of the install base, and it's growing very quickly.
And your conversations with the carriers themselves, how real do they perceive the threat to be? I mean, how seriously are they taking it?
Well, we've seen it's changing, which is great. A year or two ago, I talked to operators about this, and they'd be very much focused on data or new revenue opportunities. But I think the watershed moment probably was KPN's profit warning back in April 2011, when they had been taken by surprise by increased smartphone penetration and WhatsApp usage in particular. Now they're taking it very seriously, and they want to talk about it. The last year, I would say, was dominated by the messaging question, WhatsApp, as I say. The discussions are now getting a bit more broad, I think, and moving into voice as well. They're seriously discussing and contemplating where to take their voice services over the next 5 years.
Last year, the GSMA announced the Join brand to front RCS. How do you think that year's gone, and how do you think the rest of the year will pan out?
Well, I guess the past year's been a mixed bag. The services didn't launch on time, but then I guess, hey, when do they? I think a big disappointment has been that we haven't seen services from all the carriers in Germany and some of the other markets, some of the big SMS markets that were anticipated to have happened by now. I guess the good news has been the SK Telecom figures, where they're reporting 1 million users of the RCS service, which has obviously given a bit of momentum before the show. This year we're seeing a lot of activity. I think the GSMA have managed to maintain the momentum. There are some big launches that are coming. I expect to see quite a lot of activity in 2013 after the early pioneers have seen through many of the problems. I think we'll be here talking about it again next year. It's much more moving into the implementation stage this year. I think next year we're going to be talking about the ecosystem much more, and enabling access to APIs and building ecosystems and so on.
We're seeing a range of responses then to the threat posed by OTT players, from building from the ground up to white labeling to complete partnership. Is there a right way, or is there a wrong way?
For operators?
For operators.
Well, I get asked this an awful lot, and the answer I generally give is, well, it depends. And it very much depends on the different operators. The thing that they have in common is that they're facing a new wave of competition from virtualized global universal players, whereas they are geographically based network operators. Their business model is being stretched. In terms of the responses, whether it be RCS, Telco-OTT, white label, the various, I think it does depend. Some operators are in a stronger position, whether by luck or by design. their pricing structures are better able to cope with the impact of OTT. Some operators are more ambitious and will like to, will be minded to compete head-to-head on innovation. Other operators may not have the resources, they might be lacking IMS capabilities but want to play in that space too. Maybe they're the white label candidates. And other operators may be ideal candidates for partnerships. I'm thinking specifically of late entrants, UMTS stroke 4G players with less in the way of legacy revenue to protect. They're already very data oriented, they don't have the big brand there in the legacy market. They could well be open to partnerships.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we'll catch up again soon.